Hey dudes, welcome to episode 4 of Bits of Truth. I'm Rain Trazi with Austin McLaren.
Hey guys. Yeah, so this one's gonna be a little bit different. We're kind of talking crypto and playing chess at the same time, so we're gonna be straining both halves of our brain, the linguistic side and the intellectual side. But let's kind of cap this off with a very straining question here, to kind of get the ball rolling. What would a Bitcoin doomsday scenario look like? If Bitcoin were to crash and tumble, how would that look?
Oh, like like price go down or like cease to exist?
Cease to exist. Bitcoin is done. Like it's either oh no. It's
I
either
win.
yeah, holy shit, that quick. But yeah, it's either like in the shadow realm, like it's completely ignored, nobody even knows of it, or it ceases to exist. What would that look like? Like, what would be the most likely scenario of that kind of coming about? And what would that mean for the populace as a whole? Rain.
Well, I'd say an electromagnetic pulse.
Yeah.
Yeah, like an EMP. Um, so an EMP would be basically a thermonuclear explosion on the outside of the atmosphere,
Mm.
and it would send down an electromagnetic shock wave, which would basically fry all electronics within its impact zone. So if enough of those went on around the whole planet, um, like as like a malicious attack,
Yeah.
um, I mean, you take out obviously everything electronic, right? So that would be a Bitcoin doomsday event for sure.
That could be like a society doomsday event right there. Everybody would not know what to do. The traffic lights would be off. People would be crashing into each other. Freaking no, people won't be able to order shit off Amazon. It'd be quite the catastrophe.
Yeah, yeah. Everything you said is true, apart from the crashing into each other.
You don't think people would crash into each other without the traffic lights there?
No, I don't think it'd be a problem.
No. Oh, I
Um,
could just see like
mostly because like all cars that are not like pre-electric ignition,
yeah.
so like you're like really old cars, um well, they wouldn't work. You couldn't turn them on because all the computers and the electronics in the cars would be
Ah,
fried.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I see. I
yeah,
see.
like like starvation and all that would go up, and
Yeah.
break into anarchy, but um there'd be a lot less motor accidents.
True. True. And Bitcoin would not be functional, which would most definitely be a Bitcoin doomsday scenario, to say the least. Um,
I
but
didn't see my middle there.
yeah, yeah.
All right,
But
let's trade queens.
oh shit, eh? You really want to trade queens? But yeah, kind of how I could imagine a Bitcoin doomsday scenario, and it's not as catastrophic as like a solar flare going off and just blowing up technology, or like an EMP or something. Um, but a way I could kind of see Bitcoin going on the wayside is like people kind of forget what it's about. They forget the principles of it, and you know things like centralized entities kind of come in and hijack um, Bitcoin. So it wouldn't necessarily be obliterated. Just the core philosophy and kind of what it's about would be taken over, and people wouldn't really be using it for its main purpose, which is a decentralized peer-to-peer means of exchange. It would just be like another stock or like just another thing you put your money in, and you have to do all this KYC and you have to go through all these layers. Like there'd be so many layers set up to prevent people
Mm.
from getting the real Bitcoin that is pretty much all been hoarded by a centralized entity. So they'd be handing out like, could that be a thing? Like fake Bitcoins, or like saying, no, I don't think that could, I don't think it could go that far, but they could set up platforms where it's like the only way you can transact Bitcoin easily. I can't say the only way, but the only way you can easily transact Bitcoin would be on their networks and stuff, and there would only be like a few pocket groups of people that really stuck true and used the core Bitcoin. So would it be like Bitcoin's doomsday? Maybe not doomsday, but it would be pretty bad. It'd be a pretty low spot for Bitcoin. And the reason I'm saying this, or like the reason I'm kind of talking about this and not some like thing where like, Bitcoin gets hacked and like all this, because that is the one that I see is potentially the most likely. Like if Bitcoin were to go down bad, I could see that being the way, centralized entities kind of just grappling it and making it very, very difficult for anybody to get a hold of true Bitcoin.
Wow.
Yeah, I went on there for a bit, but yeah.
Well, like what I find scary about that is it's kind of so similar to where we're already at. You
Oh,
know what I mean?
definitely. Yeah, yeah, like
Like,
what is it? Central digital currencies or something, central CBDCs or central bank digital currencies. Like they're already trying to like make that the trend, and with exchanges and stuff. And I must admit I have used some exchanges, but I'm trying to distance myself from that as much as I can. But yeah, like exchanges, like big exchanges are always asking for all this ID and stuff, and it's really easy and convenient, but it comes at the cost of, the principles of Bitcoin and your security and all that, and it makes it more difficult to take that step into getting a hold of some real Bitcoin so that it can flourish and so that you can use it what it's really for.
you know what kind of like really really intrigues me too about what you're saying there is, I mean, technically, it would be possible to do this fake Bitcoin scam,
Yeah. Oh
but it
yeah.
would be it would be it would have to be at a scale that you know they'd be rewriting reality in a way because um, you know the difference between custodial and non-custodial, right?
Yeah, non-custodial Bitcoin is Bitcoin that you own, like you have the keys. Um, it's your Bitcoin. Custodial would be like it's on an exchange. It's like a bank, right? Like they hold your Bitcoin and just put up like a little number that says, "Oh, here's how much you have," but they're really just holding on to it. I think I get the gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could imagine this, because say you had all your Bitcoin or what you think is your Bitcoin on a big exchange,
Mhm.
and that big exchange say um, didn't actually have any Bitcoin, but they
Yeah.
just took your fiat when you purchased it on their exchange, and then they say, "Oh, you have this amount," because you're treating it like a stock, basically. Well, it's kind of twisted, but um,
That's definitely possible. Like that could happen.
Yeah, and then the issue is that this is so hard to talk about during chess, man. Wait, I got 5 more minutes than you, so I'm gonna sound smart for a minute.
Okay, go ahead, go ahead. Blow us away.
So if you have this central big exchange or a number of big exchanges, and they all say they have this amount of Bitcoin, but they don't actually have that Bitcoin in collateral, but because it's a custodial wallet where they hold the keys anyway,
Hmm.
in theory they could just BS you and say, oh yeah, yeah, you own this amount of Bitcoin. And
Yeah.
even if they really did pay out when you asked, it'd kind of be like the old gold minter scam, whereby people were cashing out of their paper notes representing the gold that you could go to the gold mint and put in. So the gold mints realized, oh, there's all of this papers, IOU papers in circulation, but they're not all cashing in at the same time because they're trading the paper notes now. So that was like the advent of fiat. It was the advent of fake money.
Hmm.
Um,
And they could do that. You're like saying they could just bing up any number on your screen, whether or not they have it, and if nobody's, you know, asking for their Bitcoin, if nobody's like demanding that they move their Bitcoin to a wallet that they hold the keys to, then who's gonna know? Who's gonna find out? And in the case that, this hypothetical situation that this is going on, or that were to happen, like what would they do when there's like a run for the Bitcoin and everybody's like, I want my Bitcoin in my own personal wallet, give me my Bitcoin, but they just printed, I guess you could say, all this fiat Bitcoin, if that's the word, fake Bitcoin. Like, oh man, it could be a
yeah,
mess. It could be a catastrophe.
yeah, I think so. And like we see that in the fiat world, all of a sudden we're kind of back to the same situation, right? Like it would be like the same scam that happened with the like we used to have gold standard currencies, right? Like I heard somewhere that the British pound actually used to be a pound of gold, or oh, I want that queen. Wait, I can't get that queen. Um, or like the U.S. dollar, it used to be backed by bullion, right?
Yeah.
But over the like kind of the mid 1900s, they just got rid of gold standard in their currencies, and until eventually it was entirely faith based or based on the velocity of the currency. Um, but it would be so twisted if we saw the same scam repeated, but this time using um, Bitcoin uh, metaphorically as the gold in the old scam, that they get out of the currency, get out of the standard,
Oh
and
man,
then
it'd be such an insult to like kind of what Bitcoin is, because it's meant to like prevent crud like that from happening. And then yeah, for like a centralized entity to kind of take control of the true Bitcoins, and then basically hand out false Bitcoins, because you can really put any number on a screen. Like it wouldn't be hard to just as put a number on a screen and say you own XYZ, and then yeah, for people to like come to a realization and be like, I want my Bitcoins, like I'm gonna, like people come to this realization of what Bitcoin um is truly about, and they're like, oh, I can just set up my own wallet. Could I get my Bitcoins, please? And they're like, no, we don't actually have it. Um, we just basically told you we had this Bitcoin, but we really didn't, and it's not your Bitcoin, so there's nothing you can do about it. That would be the ultimate insult. That would just be a
oh
slap
man,
in the face to like Bitcoin and what it's about. So, God forbid.
yeah. Oh, I hope that never comes about.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But on a lighter
But
note,
at the same time though, in parallel, right?
Yeah.
Like it would only be a counterfeit of the real thing, right? Like
True, true,
if
true.
what if we're already experiencing that? Like we experienced that with other um, cryptocurrencies. I think there was a scam coming out of China recently for a USD stablecoin, um, and it for me it was terrifying when I was looking at the graphs
Yeah.
of I don't want to say the wrong name. I should have really come loaded for this.
Yeah, this is a
Um,
hefty topic,
but
yeah.
we'll put an article to this one in the description, eh?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'll send you a link for that.
Definitely, definitely.
But I was looking at the graphs of the stablecoin and like literally on the major exchanges, like 95 plus percent of the purchases were made using this USD stablecoin because people are like day trading or something.
Oh,
And and the graphs between the price of Bitcoin um, and and the movement of this cryptocurrency were parallel. Like literally, when more of this money entered circulation, um,
Bitcoin's price went down.
Bitcoin's price went up
Oh,
because
it
it
went
was the
up.
primary purchaser of the Bitcoin, which is crazy, right?
Ah, I'm not quite getting it, but I feel like an idiot right now. If the viewers get it and I don't quite grasp the scope of it. Like what? Like there's a stable coin, and they're printing. I assume they're printing off just however many. Oh shit, you got me there. GG. But
Oh, GG.
I assume they're basically printing off all this money in digital space, and they're just buying, buying, buying with this printed money. Is that what you're saying is going on? I'm not quite clear on it.
That's what was going on.
Okay.
But the crazy thing was is that this company based out of China didn't have the collateral to actually back it up.
Ah,
So it was a scam, right? It
yeah,
was
yeah,
fraudulent,
yeah. But
and they
they
had
were buying bitcoins with it, and they didn't have like they were actually buying real bitcoins with it.
yeah they were using they were using a fiat like a counterfeit um, stable coin like a cryptocurrency
Yeah,
to buy up tons of real Bitcoin. And as we know, like Bitcoin, it's limited supply.
yeah,
Whereby this cryptocurrency, it appeared that they were just making it out of thin air because they didn't actually have enough collateral as a company to print that much of this crypto coin. Um, and a lot of their collateral was held in the Chinese mega company called Evergrande.
okay.
And this is something like the second biggest like real estate development company in China. So you could just imagine how big that is.
Massive. China's a
And
populated country.
It defaulted. They went bankrupt. But they
Oh,
hid that they were going bankrupt for months and months and months. And this was like a time bomb on Bitcoin. Like I personally think this is why we saw the huge price drop on Bitcoin um, when just recently, a few months ago, when it dropped to like 20,000 USD.
because this company was basically printing out of thin air all this all these seemingly real dollars and buying real Bitcoin with it, but it comes to turn out that those dollars were not real, and yeah, it's basically just a big old scam. But what happened to that Bitcoin? Like, what did they like? Cause they must own it. They must still own it, cause you can't just take it back. So although they forked over all this air money, they got real bitcoins in return. Like they must still have that, right? They must still own that Bitcoin.
I think that's a really good question. And
It's not like
like
they
I
lost
don't
completely, right? Like although yeah, they lost their company and like all in their scam, but it's like they still hold on to this real Bitcoin. So like what the like what the hell happens? Like what's going on?
Well, in my hobby of making friends in high places, I think I'm gonna probably say something against the Chinese government here,
No,
but
don't get
I
yourself
don't really
killed,
think
Trey.
they have the best history of being honest. And when you consider that just about every single quote private company in China is essentially an extension of the government, like
Mm.
every company is technically an extension of the state. I mean, I don't trust them as far as I can spit, but I can't accuse them specifically of where that
Oh
Bitcoin's gone,
yeah,
as
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know the answer to that.
Yeah, if
But
you get the
I
gist.
I don't trust China, man. Like, at least I don't trust their government.
Mm, mm. So to the viewers,
Or
you can guess where the prediction of what has happened to that Bitcoin has gone.
yeah,
You can only imagine. You can only come to speculate where it has gone. But I think we strayed a little there, but and we went down a pretty dark path, of course, with such a question like that, Bitcoin Doomsday. But
yeah.
let's kind of flip this on
I
a more
think that we're
positive
going.
note.
Oh, for sure. Just to say, I think that we're going through a bottleneck, and I think that if Bitcoin is going to have a doomsday scenario, it's going to be in the next 3 years.
If it were to happen.
Yeah, and I think that the Dinosaur Media, um, the governments, the central banks, Federal Reserve agencies, all of them. I think that they're all just throwing everything they have at it right now because they want to break public trust
Mm,
in decentralized money solutions. And they want people to turn in desperation to central bank digital currencies so
yeah.
that they can control the population forever.
Yeah, and kind of shadow the truth. Try kind of shadow what Bitcoin's really about and try to hide it and cover it in this misty fog of scary and oh, don't go there. It's scary over there. You come over here in the light where we have your Bitcoins all wrapped up for you in this nice package that you don't get to open. But there might be Bitcoin in there. Maybe not. But could
Yeah, it's
we,
the age old question.
yeah,
It's the
could
age old
we
question.
thrive in a completely decentralized society? So on the flip side, we talked about Bitcoin doomsday, just Bitcoin getting absolutely wiped on the floor, just walloped. But let's take it on the flip side. Bitcoin's going up, it's thriving. No more use for fiat, although, there really shouldn't have been a use in the first place. Um, Bitcoin and decentralization is on the up, and society's all for it. Could we thrive in a society with that mindset, that kind of philosophy, that way of being of just, that old time, um, people going out, gathering resources, trading, bartering, um, no middleman, no need for a middleman. Do you think we could thrive in that, or do you think we're too far gone?
I think the issue is totalitarianism, right? So, like, in an idealistic sense, where nobody has a lust for power, like, yes, of course, that'd be lovely. Um, but unfortunately, I think when individuals decide to create centralized power to project their authority over others, then you need something to oppose that uh, dark intent.
Okay, so you're thinking there couldn't really be a society that's completely like utopian, just decentralized. Like, is that kind of what you're angling at there? Or?
No, I just think that we need to ascend from. I think we need a conscious ascension in order to accomplish um,
that kind of
that sort of
lifestyle.
future.
That lifestyle. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
we'd have to kind of let go of a lot of materialism, a lot of possibly greed and lust for power. Like those things would kind of have to be not a thing of the past, because I'd say I don't know if we can ever really get rid of that aspect of human nature, but it would have to be we'd have to come to a point as a society that those things are subordinated to something much higher, and as you would say, that would pretty much be a conscious ascension for us to get to the point where we're all decentralized, living in harmony, like the primitives, right?
yeah. I mean, I often think that one of the most genius and underrated of the Ten Commandments from the Bible is don't covet your neighbor's goods, don't covet your neighbor's wife or your neighbor's donkey or anything that belongs to your neighbor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I
Don't
mean,
don't get envious, right? Don't covet, don't get envious.
yeah, because what we're always going to have is like until we could overcome that, I think what we're going to experience is the have-nots will want to take from the haves. Like people that have things will have their things taken by people that are envious.
Mm.
And and I mean, I feel like that's the age-old route to conflict is is jealousy basically, or where one group doesn't have their basic needs met and another group um, is able to meet their basic needs. It's animalistic to take, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So we kind of have to get to a point where, well, I can't say where we have abundance because we already do have a lot of abundance, but in order for decentralization to really thrive, we have to get to a point where we're not envious, where we're not like just because somebody has more because they earn more, because that's the thing about a decentralized society. I can only imagine the cream will rise to the top, and there'll be the stragglers, and things will even out. Things will like pan out. But for the unfortunate bunch that just happened to be unlucky, or just had a bad draw, to not get resentful, to not get angry about that, and kind of just live their lives peacefully and bartering, just doing what they're doing, just not letting that envy, that jealousy rise up and trying to demand somebody else's Bitcoin, or that, oh, Joey's got a massive farm, he should give me cattle and this and that, and cuz no, just no, cuz that unfortunately leads to, like you said, totalitarianism, and then, totalitarianism, that's not what Bitcoin's about. That's not what decentralization's about. So definitely,
Yeah, absolutely.
I see. We definitely have to get to that point. Um,
And as so long as we're um, jealous of what other people have and we're trying to replicate their possessions, um, well, it's really just distracting from what's actually innately important to the individual. So, say Buddy has a really nice car. I'm not really into cars, but he gets attention because he's got a nice car.
mm,
And so I put so much energy. Say if I'm honest, right? I don't just steal the car, but say if I'm honest and I work extra hard to save up to buy a car that's equally or nicer to his car, but I never actually really cared for having a car in the first place.
mm, and to kind of
Like
not, yeah, to
it's
kind,
kind of like a waste of time, right?
yeah, when you could be putting that effort to, for example, going out and like hunting, like say like your tribe's short on food or something, like you go out and like hunt and like, put that effort to something useful, not like just trying to accumulate this thing that gets your buddy attention. Ooh, ooh!
Sorry,
You
buddy.
just broke my train of thought there. I did not see that. Ooh, that's tough. All right, well, time to
Yeah.
adapt. But yeah, could we thrive in a decentralized society? Definitely with that mindset, I believe we could. And I think we already have um, th- thrived in a decentralized society. Kind of what I'm thinking about here is, you think back to the primitives and like a more simpler time. And do I think we could necessarily go back to that? I'm not sure. But I think we can move forward and embrace that, just community orientated, people to people kind of lifestyle. And what I'm thinking here is, in olden times, for example, somebody would go out and they'd collect a bunch of chicken eggs or something. They have all this chicken eggs, but then Billy over there's, he's been getting his wheat. He's been getting his wheat up. He has all this wheat, and they kind of mingle and like talk and cooperate and stuff, and they end up trading. Like Billy gives some of his wheat for the eggs, and he gives the eggs for the wheat, and people are just doing this all the time, and like people are just trading, trading, trading. Like there's not necessarily a middleman there, but people are still getting their needs. And we might not get like all the fanciest spices and stuff like that, but I could kind of see us not not necessarily going back, but like embracing that more. People getting together to work on community projects that don't need to be funded by the government or a centralized authority. And this would be more of a mindset shift. People genuinely just wanting to improve their community, um, without like not forking over that responsibility of delegating where the resources go. People will genuinely want to know where their resources are going and will want to work together to pool their energy and resources into creating things that truly better their community. So I think we can, and I think we're kind of taking that mindset shift of not, delegating responsibilities and basically grabbing the reins and being like, hey, I don't think we need to build a fancy statue here. I think we should really pool our energies together and repair this road because there's 10 million potholes and I've popped my tires like 3 different times on this one road. So let's get together, guys, and let's fix this road. Oh, shoot, I hope you didn't disconnect there. Rain, no, not again. Rain.
Hey, back.
Oh
I'm
man, I
back.
almost had a heart attack there. I thought you thought you lost your power again.
Oh man.
It's like, whew. I don't know if you got that last bit, but I'll kind of reiterate it. Pretty
No,
much what I was.
I,
You got it?
yeah, I just cut out for like 3 secs.
Okay,
But
okay, okay.
yeah, I totally see what you mean. Like in the sense of a decentralized community, you could prioritize better to actually fit the needs of the collective because the collective is more connected. In the current structure, we have collectives of we have collectives of, I mean, in Canada, we have what, 40 million people? It's hard to relate to 40 million people at the same time, I find, and
Mm,
to know all the needs simultaneously of all those people. And what we have is we have some pencil necks at the top that call themselves the government, which is Latin for govern mind.
mm,
And they decide how we live our lives. They decide how much money we owe them for providing us primarily bad services or services we don't need. And it's a waste.
It's like a poorly run machine, like an
Yeah,
unoiled, kind of just rusty machine. And although it's massive, it is very inefficient. But if you can imagine, a bunch of little machines, they're not quite as massive, but people really care about these machines because it directly affects their community. So they put in the time to keep it well oiled, to keep it well maintained, and delegate their energy and resources into these smaller but more efficient and even more powerful little machines instead of one big rusty frickin' clunker.
Yeah. Um, and in that rusty big clunker called the federal government, there's so much redundancy. There's so much wasted resources
Mm,
um, that so much taxpayer money goes to waste. Like so much energy and time goes to waste. But I think that I think that to function as a community, you need probably some extent of centralization. But I think that should really be limited to townships, like we always used to have before. There's this crazy centralization of power in the federal.
mm,
Um, and I think a huge part of that, and something that we don't have very much of anymore in Canada, is decentralized police. Like a township should have their own police
their own
department.
sheriff,
We
right?
shouldn't we shouldn't have like the RCMP where all the police in the province are controlled by one organization which answers to the federal government or
Mm,
provincial or whatever it is. As just twisted. The idea that a township can't govern itself or can't protect its own laws and is dependent on these centralized assets.
yeah,
That's insane to
yeah.
me.
That's a
Like,
big one, actually. That's 'cause say we're in a decentralized society. Well, like, and like, not to say, like, kind of what I'm imagining is, your local hooligan that's running around causing all this trouble. He might get away with a lot of stuff because there's just one big eye. Like if you think of it like an eyeball, there's one big eyeball. So he might get away with a bunch of petty crimes because it's not worth, the big eye's time to come down and give him the hammer or give him a knock on the back of the head or something. But, if you got a small, or not a small community, but if you got like community um, police officers and community law enforcement, that guy that's causing trouble, he's not going to go unnoticed, and he's probably going to smarten up quicker than, you know, had it been left to these bigger, more. Oh shoot, I'm about to lose here. I'm out of time. But these yeah, like you said, a more centralized law enforcement. I hope that rings. I hope that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
The quality of the job, you know.
Quality over quantity, as they say.
And when you have a local policeman, just for instance, they understand the town better. They deliberately rotate RCMP members or RCMP officers so that they don't get too connected with the local population. So
Oh
with
man.
that kind of strategy, like check this out. You remember the trucker protest in Ottawa, like
Yeah, yeah,
January,
yeah.
February?
Oh yeah, I was actually there.
Um,
I was there, but yeah, go on, go on.
well, the whole rally, the truckers, everybody that was there was totally getting on with the Ottawa police. And
Like
the
they were
Ottawa
bonding,
police,
like they're having a good time and stuff.
yeah, like it was like a really, from what I heard, it was really like heartfelt connection.
Oh yeah, like I
um
could I could add a little bit to that just based off my personal experience, but yeah, the vibe there was like awesome, man. Although, you may see articles saying, "Oh, like these fringe minority, really aggressive type people." No. And I came in with really no bias. I just wanted to see what it was about. I'm just like, "Hey, this is going on. This is cool." You show up, everybody's waving. They got their flags going around. Even the police are just like smiling, just looking around at all this um mayhem, and are just like, "Yup, this is it is what it is," and they're cheering. They're like, they're just they're having a good time. They're living it up a little bit. It was like a big party. And not only that, um, since I'm gonna be editing this video here, I'm gonna add this clip. But there was literally a rave. There was literally a rave going on at night. People were just up on these trucks, like dancing, big speakers. So yeah, overall, like yeah, and like to tie it back to um, the police bonding with the community and stuff. The police were there and they were completely cool with it. They're just like, yeah, like frig man, this is awesome. When like, and then for example, I showed up near the end, like when the RCMP and the military came in. I hope I got this correct. I believe the RCMP were there. I'm not 100% sure on that, but there was definitely military, definitely very centralized law enforcement. And when he showed up there, or when I showed up there, it was a whole other story. It was very solemn. It was very dark, and it was
Oh,
just like, it was just like they. It was not the same compared to the local Ottawa police officers. I can say that. So that kind of just, you know, trying to reinforce your point there based on personal experience that yes, local police officers getting along with the community can be a good thing as
oh
opposed to
yeah,
the
for sure.
as
Like
opposed to the opposite.
crime rate went down during that event. It was the largest peaceful protest in Canadian history. But the thing was, is that those military people that you saw, from what I understand, they were actually Toronto police.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's why the vibe
so
was different. That's why it was a
yeah, well,
little.
the Central Power had these radicalized, basically pig thugs from Toronto that they'd programmed to believe that the protesters were violent white racists and COVID deniers or whatever.
Mm,
And then they brought them in and then got those thugs, those hired thugs, to do their dirty work. And
yeah.
that's when we saw like the police come in and we saw the protesters assaulted. Like,
Because there was that disconnect because it wasn't local. It wasn't like that what could have been your next door neighbor. It was just somebody 4 hours away. So what does it matter if I trample him or what does it matter if I give him a slap in the face? It's not like I'm gonna see him ever again. It's not like this is my community.
not like anyone's gonna recognize them because they're all wearing masks, the
Yeah,
freaks.
yeah.
And but what gives them the authority to go and manage law enforcement in a different city?
Mm, yeah.
Like, that's twisted to me. Like, why is it that when no laws are being broken and it's a very peaceful thing, it's a peaceful protest? What gives a centralized authority the right to take another, quote, police unit, bring them to another city? I mean, okay, now Toronto doesn't have its law enforcement, right? But
Yeah.
then they bring these police into another city with no understanding of what's actually going on there, and within a short period of time they're assaulting the Canadian people.
Yeah, and they're in foreign territory, so I can only imagine, like, in their perspective, they'd be a bit on edge. Like, it's not their home turf. They don't feel comfortable, so they're more prone to, slip up because they're a little bit on edge. They don't, it's not their area, so they're just like, oh, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tricky, tricky, but overall, I think kind of the consensus we've come to that is that um, a centralized society could in fact thrive. It could in fact be a great thing. Um, but we still got some work to do. And you're about to run out of time, Rain. But we still got some work to do in order to reach that point.
Yeah. I think that overall we can exist in a decentralized society. There's
Definitely,
always going to
definitely.
be a need for cooperation, especially at the communal level. Um, but I think that the more decentralized we become on the global scale, the less vulnerable we are to totalitarianism. Like,
Mm,
if we put the
mm,
checks and balances in place, uh, for instance, financially, right?
yeah,
If we put into place that, okay, now we're gonna use bullion, barter, Bitcoin, these decentralized, untracked things. Um, just in terms of finance, that liberates people. I think that, taking the power back at the township level and making our own laws, our own tax rules, our own everything at the local level, give the power back to the people. It doesn't need to be in Trudeau's back pocket. He doesn't need to dictate to all of us when we wear a mask. Like, I
Yeah,
dare
more
say
more
that,
cohesion, more like
yeah,
more bond, more true, more like just community orientated, which I feel like we've been lacking a lot, over the I can only imagine how much things have changed over the
yeah,
last centuries and stuff, but I can only imagine hundreds of years ago, community was very important. People would know their local sheriff like it's their next door neighbor. He's the guy protecting the town. They respect him. He's like a hero. Um, there'd be more of that, and I think,
or he's a crook and everybody knows it, and they're
yeah,
looking to get rid of him.
true, true.
Like, like our societal issues prior were so localized we could actually do something about them.
Now things
Now
have
it's
blown
like,
like way out of proportion, and you just had like people are worried about these way like issues that are just don't have to be issues.
and they're so beyond the individual's power, right? Like, if
Yeah.
you want to change the world now, you really have to do so much on a laptop. It's ridiculous
Mm.
because they've really just it's so matrix like.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, you think of like global, like Earth, like healed the Earth, like save the whatever movements and stuff. Hey, listen, guys, I don't want to insult my viewers. If you support that stuff, that's fine. But when it comes to issues like like all these global warming and like all this other stuff, when like their community is on fire, and it's just like, man, maybe we should not be focusing on like that stuff, like global warming stuff, and like put out the fire a little bit, things would run a bit smoother, and then maybe global warming would not be an issue, because I don't even know if it is actually, but like maybe like the more local issues would be solved, and that would be better, and then you wouldn't have to focus on that issue because you're focused on your local issues. If you get the gist, I know that was all over the place, but
Yeah, I feel like global warming, the narrative, it's an excuse for the individual to pass on responsibility to the state
oh
to make
yeah,
the planet better.
I could see
And
that.
on the state's end, it's the state's excuse to seize more authority over the individual. So it's like
It's
it's
like
a
a
consent.
parent-child. It's like a parent-child relationship. It's like somebody just wants to hand over all their It's like a somebody that doesn't grow up. It's just like they want to hand over all their responsibility to, the parent, and the parents is just like, okay, only if you do X, Y, and Z. Like, here's all my responsibilities. Here's all my self accountability. I'll just huddle up and you take care of everything at the expense of, you know, basically your individuality. So yeah, I could very much see that. Like the tyrannical, like the archetype of the tyrannical father would be like the state, and then the archetype of like the son would be the people basically like, here's a problem, deal with it. And then the tyrannical state is just like, okay, we'll deal with it. But you have to sit in the corner for 10 hours or something. Or it's like, you give me all
You
your,
gotta pay tax on your petrol.
yeah, exactly. I don't think the relation there was that great. I think that was a pretty crappy
Well,
analogy, to be quite frank.
well, just to add to the weirdness of the analogy, though,
Yeah.
because I mean, like, I gotta admit, like people that want to think of the state as their parent, like, because I think there are people that literally treat the state or big
Oh, that's
tech
what I was imagining. Yeah, I
corporations
was like
or
imagining these
employers.
people like,
They
yeah,
treat these authoritative figures as a parent. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like people never grow up; they're just got an extended adolescence. But just to add to the freaking weirdness of the analogy, with the whole climate crisis narrative, I just wrote an article last week titled "Cannibalism: Is This the
Oh,
New
okay.
Normal?"
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And it's so ridiculous because you read through these papers, and literally the common narrative is we have to turn to cannibalism and eating our dead cats to save the planet from global warming.
That's so brutal.
So all of a sudden, eating a human corpse, never mind all the prion diseases you can get from that, like Creutzfeldt or whatever, like just the fact that they're spinning this narrative of like
Because global warming is
you have
that
to eat
important,
people.
guys. It's that important.
Yeah.
You gotta eat your dead friends so that you don't leave a carbon footprint more than X, Y, and Z, guys. We don't want to do that, so you better gobble up Tommy there. Like,
Yeah, and this is on the tail end of the eat bugs to stop global warming.
oh, okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. Eat bu-
But it's everywhere.
eat
It's like
bugs.
this.
You know what? This
Yeah,
might
no,
sound completely
seriously.
bizarre, but um, there was like these dried bugs that were being sold at the candy shop. Believe it or not, there's a local candy shop where I lived at, and when I was younger, he was selling like seasoned bugs, and I ate them, and they weren't bad. They were
I
actually
mean, I've
tasty. You could do it. You could live off bugs. That's the consensus I came to. It's like if I had to, I could eat bugs. I know that was completely bizarre and random, but I felt I had to add
oh
that.
no, it's not like I've tried them. Like I've tried similar thing to what you're talking about.
Mhm.
I didn't like it, but
No.
it was tolerable.
Yeah.
Um, for me, in an apocalyptic scenario, which these days isn't too unlikely, whereby there's a complete collapse of the food chain, like, um, I mean, we might have to turn to Bill Gates to consuming insects just to survive. But the thing is, like, it's not a good lifestyle because of the chitin
Oh,
in the
okay.
bug.
Yeah.
There's no way to take it out of the insect
Is there
before
anything wrong
consumption.
with that though? Like,
Yeah, it's carcinogenic. It gives you cancer.
oh, I see. That's not
Like
nice.
it's not like it's not a good thing to consume. And I think that, like, I'd rather be vegan or vegetarian.
Yeah. I don't think we were
Um,
meant to consume insects, but the
no,
option's
I
always
think it's
there.
lower on the food chain
Yeah.
for us. Like in a pinch, sure. Like if it's a survival situation, yeah. But I don't think that we should be guiding our whole society down that road. Like
Yeah, like
we
to consume insects to save the planet from global warming. No, I don't think so. I don't think we got to do that either.
I feel like global warming is an excuse for global totalitarianism. Like it's almost cult like.
Mm.
This idea that carbon dioxide is bad is kind of ridiculous because we literally, I mean, along with creating water molecules when we exhale CO2.
And the trees
We
the
turn
trees consume it.
O2, and then the trees through photosynthesis use that CO2, and then they give off O2 as a byproduct. Like CO2 is not inherently awful,
Mm.
and like it's actually fundamental to life on Earth.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I was just gonna
it,
add to
it
that. I've seen like take this kind of for a grain of salt, but I'd watch documentaries and stuff, and it'd be like the time of the dinosaurs and like prehistoric times and stuff, and all the insects were massive, and it's just like all this lush vegetation and like jungles and all this amazing just creatures. And the guy on the documentary said this is due to an increase of carbon dioxide. This is like an increased carbon is what like made things so lush and like what made the insects so big. I don't know how true that is, but you know, I could imagine it because we breathe that stuff out. The trees breathe it in, and then the more of it, the bigger they can grow, and the more lush and the more the insects, you know, can just grow with all this extra abundance of seemingly bad stuff.
Yeah, well, it's true. Back in Jurassic times, when creatures were 30 feet high,
Yeah.
the CO2 levels were 500 times higher.
Mm.
Since those times, the carbon had been basically captured under layers of earth and turned into basically coal or fossil fuels, um, and was trapped in the earth, and the earth's atmosphere was getting thinner and the CO2 is decreasing. It's
Things were
almost like,
shrinking, and yeah.
in my opinion, it's almost alien level thinking to use it as a fuel source and replenish our atmosphere. But there's a lot of things going wrong environmentally right now, which are completely insane. Like, I am an environmentalist. I'm not anti CO2.
Okay.
Um, I was looking through patents because I really took an interest in this chemtrail thing,
Mhm.
and we've gone from calling them contrails to admitting that they're real to ignoring them. Um, Myself and other people have literally watched these jet sprays turn on and off and on again and off again. I've watched from lookouts over my town as these planes would fly over our town and start spraying as they came into the township and then stop on the other side of the township. And apparently that's just a vapor trail. These giant flumes of titanium oxide and other nasty chemicals.
That would be a
So
terrifying
I
sight
took
to see. I don't know how I could explain that. If this plane's just flying over, you see like,
yeah, and I took an interest in it, and I ended up looking at all the patents for geoengineering, and these patents date back to 1895. The original idea behind um, weather modification was to create essentially force a cloud to form by, this was before they had flight, by the way. So the idea would be to lift TNT into the sky on a time detonator using a balloon, and then poof, make
oh,
an explosion up there. And they would basically, the explosion, on the other side of the explosion, it would force um, a cooling effect and vapor to be drawn into one point, and they could engineer
rain. I would
rainfall
imagine.
back in 1895,
Yeah.
or at least they patented the idea. But these patents don't stop. Ever since then, they've been releasing multiple a year. And the one I just read up was one of the newest patents is they're making essentially these particulate bubbles. So it's got a hollow center. And their idea is that because, and I'm paraphrasing their document, but because the normal ways of geoengineering are just normal particles,
Mm.
they only linger in the sky for so long. And eventually we need to reapply using more flying. Like, they got to fly through again to spray another flume of this chemical cloud. So their new idea is, oh, we'll just make it a hollow particle so that it stays in the sky for longer because we need to block out the sun to stop climate change.
Ah, I see. I see where that ties in. How like they could use climate change to kind of push this, push the need for something like that, and then in reality they're just causing issues.
Yeah, and it's apocalyptic. Like, these centralized powers, whoever they may be, it looks like it's the military industrial complex, but I cannot confirm. But they've just decided on behalf of everybody else that they're going to block out the sun.
I hope that's not the
So
case.
moving away from the whole environmental rant, like, this is the fruits of centralized control. they can decide on something so insane as, in the name of saving the environment, they'll spray toxic barium, aluminium, strontium into the sky, essentially poisoning our habitats, our farms, our water systems, our clouds. It's no longer safe to drink rainwater because these psychopaths made a decision for everybody else without discussion or debate that they would block out the sun to save the world.
Yeah, and that wouldn't. I couldn't see that happening. Um, if we were more localized, and if we could hold our local sheriff accountable for flying hot air balloons up with detonators and blowing them up above our heads in the name of blocking out the sun. I just don't see that flying on a local level. I think that sheriff or those groups, those few sheriffs that come together to pull a stunt like that, um, I could see them getting the boot relatively quickly.
Yeah, or at least shot.
Yeah,
Like,
at the least.
you what? You want to block out the sun? Oh no, son. We're not having that.
Pew pew pew, bang! Get out of
Yeah.
town, Buster.
Or I mean, in the less malicious sense of actually trying to create rainfall in a non end the world type way,
Yeah.
like you'd have a communal decision, and then you do something that, for the most part, like such as the 1895 patent. Okay, you send up a hot air balloon, you blow it up, and you force a rain, and you save the town from a drought.
Mhm.
Okay, well, at least you had the right to make that decision at the decentralized level. You actually made that choice for yourselves. You attended your township halls. You had a crisis and you came together and you pulled resources together and you sorted it out. But to just hand off the responsibility to people that you have no interaction with, as they constantly demand money from you and take it from you, it just it's just, do I need to point out the ridiculousness?
No, I don't think you don't. I don't think you do, and I think that's what this whole conversation, or like this whole second half of the conversation, has been about. Is just kind of reiterating, um, kind of the accountability people will have for such decisions if things are on a more local level. Like if we're not just, like you said, handing off these decisions to people in return for money, um, basically without any consequences. Because what are we gonna do when there's this guy up across the other side of the country just flying air balloons and stuff, hypothetically, um, doing all this funky stuff. But then you got the guy, the sheriff, and you all come together and, make a decision for yourselves, for your community, and not just handing off that valuable um, responsibility, because responsibility is valuable, and being able to make a choice for yourself is very important, and we can't just give that up, because that's really all we have is the ability to make choices for ourselves and to come together and to make choices for the greater good of the community, not for things like greed, power, lust, control, all that stuff.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Yeah, we have a right to freedom, and that does, as you say, that's a right to make our own decisions for ourselves, but not to impose our
Our
desires or
decisions.
authority on
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
people.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, yeah, I think this podcast has been running on for over an hour, so I think we're gonna have to
Wow,
leave
man,
it on that
new
note.
record.
Yeah, leave it on a serious note. But you know, I'm glad we got another episode in there. It's great. I love this. I love to just go through this process of starting the episode and then just getting lost in the conversation. It's always great, and I'm glad that you know I'm glad we're doing this. I just want to put that out there. I appreciate the viewers. I appreciate you, Rain, and yeah, I'm excited to keep making more podcasts in the future, and I hope you guys um really liked it. I mean, you must have been at least interested in what we're saying to stick around for over an hour. But I hope you have a good one, guys, and I hope you got some um bits of truth, bits of knowledge to take with you. Is there anything you'd like to say, Rain?
Well, I just wanted to reciprocate. Thank you, Austin. This is really a highlight of my week, doing these recordings with you, bud. And also, yeah, thanks so much to the people listening too. It's a really big time commitment. I hope this has been a blessing in your background, just listening to this podcast while you're doing other things. And I'll send you, Austin, some links just about that chemtrail stuff. I'll
Yeah,
send you
yeah,
that
yeah.
cannibalism article I wrote,
Definitely,
and I'll
definitely.
send you that article on the Chinese cryptocurrency, because I was really not informed enough to give
Mm,
all the facts on that. But I got
mm,
some material that I can put to you to put in our description there, and
definitely.
clean it all up.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Peace.
Peace.